Eddie sighed in exasperation. I already explained the chocolate. You did, and I believed it at the time, but now I'm not so sure. He bumped his shoulder against Eddie's. You can tell me if you like her. I'm not going to tease you. Don't make promises you can't keep. I'm not. You are. You know as well as I do that if I tell you that I might like her, you're going to get excited like Mom does and tell everyone else, and/or bring it up in a teasing fashion over and over to find out what you can about how things are going. Fred was the more excitable of the two of them. In fact, he was the most excitable of all his siblings. You like her? Fred nodded his head and smiled. I knew it. I did not say I liked her. Yes, you did, and if you'll notice something other than yourself, you'll see that I didn't tease you or shout about it in jubilation. I said, if I tell you, that's a conditional clause indicating a hypothetical situation. Don't grammar me, I know what I heard, I'm not a doofus. They were at the cash register now, and Fred moved ahead to wait near the door, where he stood, watching Eddie and looking annoyed. I'd tell you if I had a possible crush, he grumbled when Eddie joined him. Don't know why you don't trust me. Ugh. Guilt settled in like a thick fog on a cold autumn morning. Fine, I might like her. I mean, I do like her, but there are reasons for perhaps not allowing that. Such as? I work with her, she's paying me to edit her books. Fred nodded. That could be tricky, but is that it? He stood in front of him with arms folded, holding his gaze and still looking annoyed. She likes romance. Well, that's a stupid reason to not like a girl, and it's going to make it hard to find one to like. Lots of them seem to like romance. I think it's like a built-in thing that God created them with. Eddie tipped his head towards the end of Hatfield Falls' small mall where the dollar store was, and then started walking that way. But I've always been rather outspoken about my dislike of the genre. So what are you thinking, that if you like her, people will think you're stupid? Yeah, something like that. There was more to it, of course. But did he dare tell Fred that secret? They won't. It's not like you've suddenly become a romance fanatic or something. Actually, Eddie glanced at Fred and shrugged. I might have been somewhat wrong about romances. Fred grabbed him by the arm and pulled him towards the food court, if you could call 3 food service places a food court. This requires food and sitting, he said as he stopped at a table. Sit. I'll get us a box of Timbits. Eddie sat and waited while Fred joked with the girl behind the Tim Hortons counter, and likely ended up with a couple extra donut holes in his box. Why couldn't twins be alike in more than looks? All his life, Fred had walked into any and every situation as though he belonged there, while Eddie had felt like an outsider more often than not. His brother plopped the box of 20 Timbits on the table and took a seat. Then he opened the container. All sour cream glazed, and she tossed in a couple extra when I said I was using them to bribe you into sharing secrets. It was just as he had expected, but Eddie wasn't complaining about getting extra Timbits, especially since sour cream glazed donuts were among his favorites. Now spill, Fred demanded. What do you mean by you might have been wrong about romances? This has been an excerpt from Don't Tell Anyone I Read Romance by Annilee Nelson. All rights reserved. The narrator for this video has been Chloe, an authorized voice replica made available by the voice actor through the Elevenlabs library.